Hello and welcome to SimplyCyber Live. I'm your host, Gerald Ogier, and every Thursday we talk with experts to help you take your cyber career further, faster. And if you like this, be sure to check out the SimplyCyber YouTube channel for more great content. Special thanks to Side Channel for hosting a virtual social happy hour after this live stream. And if you are interested in attending, you can go to socialhour.sidechannel.com right there on the bottom. Today we have an incredible show. We are joined by two senior, very seasoned, very experienced cybersecurity recruiters who are going to spend the next half hour with us pulling back the curtain on the job hunting process and answer all of our questions. So feel free to just fire them into the comments. I'm going to be facilitating it to them. We are joined today by Joe Hudson and Pete Strauss. Let me bring them up into the studio here. Hey, Joe. Hey, Pete.
Hello.
So today's mostly going to be Q&A, so I won't go through a long bio intro, but just, so the audience can kind of establish background. Joe, can you go first? And then Pete, can you guys just give a 30-second high level on why people want to listen to you and talk to you?
No problem. Yes, I've been working at a company called HuntSource, just celebrated 3 years last week. Before that, 2 years of very unrelated contract recruiting. I taught elementary school for 9 years before that and needed my students to kind of tell me how to work the smart board. So I definitely didn't come from a tech background. I'm an absolute addict for everything we focus on here at HuntSource. Love working here. Love talking to all the people that we get to talk to and really talk about real problems or real successes. And it's an ongoing joy every day, really.
Awesome. Well, I'm Pete Strauss. I am the co-founder and managing partner of InfoSec Hires. I started in recruiting back in 2014 in the IT realm, and then I've kind of transitioned since into the security recruiting world. And I've been at security recruiting for over 6 years now. I've been on the corporate side as well as now we call it the agency side of recruiting, where I'm helping other companies find people, and like I said, been in the security world for about 6 years. And yeah, I guess that's about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys both for taking the time to be with us today. Really excited. So I thought, we're obviously going to start letting questions queue up and stuff like that. But the one question I wanted to start with, and special thanks to those who submitted questions ahead of time. I feel like this is probably the most prevalent question you get in all of cybersecurity. It certainly feels that way. Is, entry-level job, years of experience is 5 years. I mean, I've seen multiple jokes where it's like, you must have 4 years of fast API experience, and the guy who created it says, well, I invented it a year and a half ago, so I don't really know how to meet that goal. So, what are your thoughts and perspective around that paradox of years of experience for an entry-level job that just doesn't feel like it maps?
I can kind of take that. So I think really where that comes from, and there's a couple of things at play here. First is that often there's a disconnect between the hiring managers in security and the HR or recruitment teams. So you'll see job descriptions put together by somebody in HR who doesn't necessarily understand the security world or the certifications or the experience requirements, things like that. And then I've also heard from plenty of hiring managers out there that security isn't necessarily an entry-level profession. A lot of folks see it as a more advanced profession under the larger umbrella of IT. So when hiring managers say that they're looking for a few years of experience for an entry-level job, basically they're saying, though it's entry level for security, it's not entry level as a whole, as a role in general. So in a lot of cases, then folks are looking for people that have had a couple of years of IT experience and then parlayed that into a career in security later on.
Yeah, I would agree. On the flip side, I think the narrative that's being told to a lot of applicants is it's a different narrative from different directions. I talked to a lot of college graduates that haven't had their first job yet, and they're saying out loud, I'm worth $80,000. And, they believe that might be a case that they can actually have. And some people might be getting hired right out of school. Definitely some people are qualified. But what you're looking at is mixed messaging. And you're right, Pete. I think the messaging and the disconnect between hiring managers and HR, there are companies where a hiring manager can walk down the hallway with his candidate he wants to hire. He knows he's very qualified or she's very qualified, but that candidate fails some sort of requirement through the application process, and HR automatically rules them out, and this manager legally can't even hire the person. So it's company specific, I think. I think it's location and geography specific. Different cities have different personalities, and companies have different personalities for what they would consider entry level. And really how advanced and mature is your program, and how seriously do you take security from the top down? That's really what I would see. There's just inconsistency, kind of landmines, I think, all over the country in different ways, and there's really no one answer. I think it applies to specific companies that we would talk about. Really.
Yeah, that's a great point. So we'll get some questions in here. I'm gonna start throwing them in here. A question from Steve Hayes, guy I used to work with. I know him quite well. Steve was wondering if you guys could, rank in terms of importance those key things that you would see, any candidate have across it. So certifications, degree, years of experience. He puts clearance here, but I really think it's certification, degrees, and years of experience.
I would say among all of those things, the one thing that they're the two things, I guess, that kind of stand out as consistent among all different seniority levels, people's, with different levels of experiences. What specific experience you have that's relevant to that job. So experience would be number one. And then the second thing would be passion. Universally, all hiring managers are looking for folks that are passionate about the field, that want to learn more, that are information sponges, that maybe have a lab set up at home, or they go to all the virtual, networking events for security people. They're going to their local makerspace and things like that. So I think pretty universally, you'll see that hiring managers are looking for passion and a demonstrated passion. If you can show that, you're passionate about the field by doing X, Y, and Z, that's really important versus just saying, I have a passion for the field. You need to be able to demonstrate that. And then the second part of that experience, just making sure that your experience directly aligns with the position at hand. With how siloed security can be in many cases, it's super important to be able to match your exact experience to that exact experience required by the job. In some cases, in order to get through HR and recruitment teams, you have to really make sure that your resumes have keywords in them that match up directly to that job. And so you might need to have multiple versions of your resume just to get through those filters. But when it comes to what a hiring manager is looking for, just need to make sure that you have experience with the tech stack that they're looking for. And, that could come through academic experience. It could come through self-study. It doesn't necessarily need to come from on-the-job training or experience. You can get a lot of those things just through doing your own research, which is super key and goes back to that passion point.
Yeah, Pete, I think you nailed it with the passion. I think the problem with that part is it's really tough to communicate that. If you're like an applicant and you're putting on your resume, I don't think we see too many resumes that say, I watch 6 hours of YouTube videos every day on security, and, I network with people and I apply to 50 jobs a day or whatnot. That part, though, it's irreplaceable. And you're right, the home lab, that's something that we've been tinkering with the idea of, like, where's a scholarship out there for building home labs for people? Things like that. I want to see things that are putting people in place to be successful. But from the question that Steve asked, as a recruiter, it depends on our client. We have to know our client. We have to know, okay, yes, the job description says bachelor's degree. It's not required. Or, hey, don't send anybody without a degree. And we have to know that from a recruiting perspective. I definitely think certifications rank higher in my eyes in terms of value than a degree. Especially for a specific technology or profession that you're looking at. So if you have an OSCP, but you're applying to a risk management, or a risk assessor job, it may not necessarily be that applicable. So it just kind of depends on the role that you're looking at. I think when it comes to clearances, that's a very little wiggle room type of requirement depending on it. I do much more on the private sector side, but for sure I've worked some cleared jobs and kind of had to learn the hard way the little flexibility that there might be, or the fact that, yes, we can bring this person on and we'll call you in 10 months when we're ready to hire them.
Right.
But I think that that topic, the certifications versus degrees, you can start to sneak by some of the years of experience if you offset it with some of these other qualifications, depending on the company. But that's one of the only ways I see sometimes around the years of experience, unless you know somebody or unless you can get an interview and actually knock their socks off just by being your authentic self, really.
Yeah. So we got another couple questions that are kind of similar in a sense, but I'll bring in Roland here. So Roland's basically, what do you do? It's taking up quite a bit of real estate on our screen here. What do you do when you're like a one-man cyber shop, one-woman cyber shop, and you kind of do risk compliance, security operations, incident response, endpoint stuff? And how do you translate that into, when you're trying to get it up? And we've got another question here from a student who is a student, but doing SOC type work, but feels they're having a tough time explaining who they are because they're seen as a student. I feel like they're similar, where it's like, you're just this, jack of all trades. I'm going to take this question down, Roland, just so we can see the speakers, but to you guys, please. Cool.
I'll take this, Pete, or I'll lead off at least. I mean, I think that can be a tough thing to communicate, and that's where you really have to, that's where I think talking to people like us might be able to help you honestly customize or curtail your resume towards an audience that you're looking. There could be a role that you're applying to that has 15 descriptions and we would love somebody that can deal with the frameworks, the compliance, can do some pen testing, can do the vulnerability scans, and actually has great communication skills, can tie their shoes with one arm, and can do all of these things. They might be asking for that. But a lot of the roles that we see are a little bit more niche, even though the job descriptions are a page and a half for a little bit narrower job. Tweaking your resume to fit the bread and butter of what it is you're going after. I think it's a big plus if you have an ability to step into an environment and kind of tackle any problem. But sometimes and oftentimes that's not what people are looking for. So figuring out a way to work with and network with or partner with either recruiters or people that that have gone the distance and gotten good careers in security to kind of tell the story that you want for the specific audience, it's pretty imperative. Because I definitely think Pete and I probably have seen our fair share of 5-6 page resumes where it's we go through it and we go, okay, this person is very qualified, but I don't really know A, what they're great at, or B, what they really want to be great at or want to do moving forward.
Yeah, it's all about making the information that you want the audience to see easy to see. So, the longer a resume gets, the harder it is to find the information, for us recruiters that we want to see. So it's important to be able to kind of condense down why you think that you're a good fit for a specific position in a small amount of space. The average recruiter spends like between 6 and 10 seconds on a resume. So obviously that's not a lot of time, and it sounds kind of crappy, but that's the reality of it. So anything that you can do to really capture somebody's eye in a short amount of time is super important. And I think the hardest part of getting a job in security, or really any field, is just getting past all the automatic filters and algorithms and recruiters who don't know what they're looking at. So it's super important to have different versions of your resume. Some practical advice here I would say is like have a folder for all of your resumes and have, I would do Pete_Strauss_ incident response resume, Pete_Strauss_ general security operations resume, stuff like that. So you can easily see which resume you have for each specific job that you're targeting. And instead of trying to put everything on one resume, put all the relevant terms in as much depth as you can for that one specific skill set, and really dig into it and use as many keywords as you can. A good way to kind of tweak your resume and make sure that that depth is there and that all those keywords are there is just look at a job description. Look at your target ideal job. Look at what terms they use. Look at what tech stack they have in that job description. And if there's anything that you've worked with there or any action words that you can use of things that you've done within that specific discipline of security, just make sure that it's repeated as many times and you say it a bunch of different ways as possible in your resume. And then maybe don't include some of the stuff that isn't necessarily applicable to that specific silo of security or that specific job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to
So we
piggyback
got,
on that, hop on the LinkedIn pages of the company that you're actually applying to. Look at the manager's page or someone that might be on the team and see what they've got on their page that they're actually doing. Because most of these pages, these job descriptions are a lot longer than they probably need to be. They have plenty of their own fluff as well. So, it's a 5-minute investigation that might actually lead you to figure out specifically exactly what you need to focus on, like Pete said. It's a good point.
Yeah, that research is so paramount. I mean, any job that you go after, you should be doing that amount of research, I would say. Looking at the company page, you can do a Boolean string in LinkedIn and search for people with that job title or that skill set. So you can go to the company page and then it'll list their employees. You can click on that, look at all the employees, and then filter that down by those keywords you want to target and easily find somebody who's either in that role or has that skill set in that organization.
Those are all great points. Little OS scent, if you will, pulling a cyber skill.
Yeah,
I'm going to bring a question in from Tirthesh. Hopefully I said that right. And I feel like this addresses a question that I get quite often. So it seems like a wide one. And his specific question is about, starting a career from India. But what I would like you guys to kind of talk about, because I think it'll encompass his question, is for international individuals looking to get into cyber, or they are cyber and come to the United States through different means. What kind of what are you seeing? What kind of advice would you give? What are the challenges perhaps that they're encountering, especially if it's for remote work, which is quite popular right now, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I can tell you that that's a conversation I've had a lot of discussions around, whether it's with clients or it's with potential candidates. For example, in India, that's a hub for a lot of offshore work, and it's a completely different culture for a lot of people in the sense that the way people might grow their careers there is quicker in some ways and different. You have a lot of people trying to get a lot of jobs. There are a lot of low-paying jobs accordingly, and that's why the jobs get shipped over there. And to phrase it that way it sounds very negative, but there's actually very good work getting done. And companies, as they face situations like this now, I mean, they are looking at different options. If I'm living in another country, I'm looking at companies that have global presences. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm looking for people that are currently working in India for specific companies, and I'm messaging all of them. And I'm saying, hey, how did you get that job? What are the career growth opportunities there? And I think people that are really trying to grow their careers anywhere in the world, taking deliberate steps, trainings, certifications, making it clear that I am a cybersecurity professional, even if it's aspiring. The remote side of things, you have to find and network with recruiters, with companies that might have certain work visa flexibility, work authorization flexibilities. That takes some research and it changes. And I mean, that's a topic of discussion that we have to talk about a lot recently, just from a government perspective. But it's definitely manageable and doable, and it's something that I would expect to potentially increase in opportunity over the next couple of years, especially since you look at, I think the number they throw around is 3 million vacancies, but really that's mostly not in the United States. And so most of these vacancies are not in the United States. I think it's like 570,000 or something of them are in the United States. So we're talking 84% really of the jobs are not here. That means they're somewhere else. So, I think that, it's kind of the same methodology Pete and I've been talking about. You have to be putting in some extra effort to network and research and find out where can I be looking to have the highest ratio of success potentially.
Yeah. And
Go on, Pete. After this, though, I want to kind of go one back and forth, just because we're getting a lot of questions, and I want to make sure we get to them.
Okay.
So, but please respond to the international question, Pete.
Yeah. So the issue really is how the U.S. treats work authorizations. It's so tough to get an H-1B. There's a lotto system, and at the end of the day, even if you're remote out of a different country, chances are the employer here in the U.S. will want you to have a U.S. work authorization. And really, that's the biggest hurdle, I think. So one thing that you can do, and this is what I see a lot of people do, is, and this is most common from what I've seen with, like Joe said, global organizations that have a presence in, say, India, and then also the US. I see it a lot with consulting firms. So consider going to work for like the big four consulting firms. They're large global companies. They do a lot of business in India. They do a lot of business in the US. But if you get on board with a company like that, you're able to work in your home country. And then once you've built some experience, that company is more likely to go ahead and sponsor your visa to come work in the US. So that's one way to do it versus trying to find a company that'll just hire you without having worked with you before. It's much easier to get employed with a company and then have them transfer you from one country to another. So that's definitely the route that I would take if I were in that same situation.
Yeah, that's a great point. They do have those deep pockets and connections to be able to, once you're on the inside, it's always easy to kind of move around. So the next question I want to ask, we're getting a lot of variations of this question, and I'll throw one or two up. But essentially, we're seeing a lot of individuals who work in IT or they're sysadmins, or they're a PM, but it seems mostly like they're technology-based professionals who want to pivot into security. And in some instances, their IT experience isn't being counted when they're trying to meet minimum requirements of years of experience for InfoSec. Sometimes they just don't know, how do you pivot in there? So if you guys could speak to what you're seeing or how you advise your clients as candidates who are going from IT wanting to transition into a cybersecurity role.
I would say first and foremost, wait. Now is not the best time to be trying to make a career transition. It's really not. There's a ton of people looking right now that say have been in security for 5 or 10 years that aren't trying to do a career transition right now. The whole COVID thing, it's really kind of turned the world on its head. So I would say, first and foremost, continue building your skills as much as you can with your current employer. If you're in IT right now, try and get as many security oriented duties as you can so that you can add those things to your resume. Also, do security meetups, hang out with security people, talk to security hiring managers through LinkedIn, just network and do everything that you can to kind of get yourself embedded in the world of security and start building relationships so that long term you're more likely to find a career in security when hopefully things pick up and start looking a little bit better from an economic standpoint. But it can be done right now. Just know that there's a lot of people looking, and you're going to have to contend with a lot of other folks that are looking. I've been looking at job postings recently, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people applying to a single job posting. And for any human being, it's almost impossible to go through every single one of those applications and resumes and actually review them on a deeper level than just a quick glance. So really important right now, especially more than ever, to really break through the noise. And then I would say bide your time to try and build experience, try and build your resume. And again, get those security keywords in your resume. That's going to be the biggest thing. So if you've worked on an IT role but had security responsibilities, just make sure that you really focus on the security aspects of those jobs.
Yeah. And so as a follow-on to that question for you, Joe, a couple people here who are trying to make that transition. I've got a couple here where they're, Anthony says that he's built a home lab and he's trying to get certs, but he's still not breaking in. We have another one here from Alex who says he wants to know if going through a boot camp that's specifically focused on security is the right call as far as, standing out and giving him that kind of, produced experience, if you will. So what are your thoughts about kind of using those as techniques?
Yeah, well, I think these are great questions. And I don't think that there's one answer, because I think some people are going to be great test takers. Some people are going to be great at being interactive. Some people would prefer to be left alone and just study. The CompTIA's Security Plus, for example, I remember, getting that when I first started working here, just to read through it. And I was like, this would be pretty quick for someone to figure out that I don't want to do this stuff. And I think that there's a lot of training out there that's cheap, accessible. There's a lot of free stuff right now. SANS offers free stuff. I know that there's an OWASP thing out there. There's free trainings out there that really expose you to different elements of security that you think you might be interested in and want to transition to, that you can be putting in the investment with very minimal money as much time and at the pace that you want to go. And if you're really hustling, talk to people that have come from similar backgrounds as yours, that have similar interest or approaches. Soft skills very much matter. You can go get certain types of professions, but you may have a ceiling based on what you are capable of or prefer to do when it comes to actually relationship management and talking with people, or, hey, I just want to be behind my keyboard and I don't want anyone to know that I'm not actually the cartoon picture in my LinkedIn profile or whatnot. I think, though, that things like boot camps and meetup groups, I'm part of a really awesome meetup group called the QC Skitties here in Charlotte. That is a bunch of guys and women that are trying to or have been pretty early in their offensive security careers, and they just knowledge share all day. They have hacked the box. They're on Discord. They are just an awesome group of people with humility checked at the door, or egos checked at the door, and they're knowledge sharing. And I think getting involved in groups like that can be an incredibly inspirational move that makes you solidify your feelings. Hey, I want to keep going for this. And now you've got a support system. You've got people looking out for you. If you're just applying, or you're just reading things online, I think you're limited in what you're going to be able to know about yourself, honestly.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we've only got a few minutes left. I knew this 30 minutes was going to go too fast, and there's so many great questions from the audience and stuff. But I do want to give you guys an opportunity for, final thoughts. I feel like you talk to, the people in this audience, you talk to people just like them day in and day out. If you want to give some final parting words, and maybe if there's a way, if you want to continue to connect with you, maybe the best way to do that, social media, email, website, whatever, let them know, because this is the community.
Awesome. Yeah, I would just say if you guys want to follow up after this, certainly happy to answer any questions that you might have, or if you need more advice. Our company can be found at infosekhires.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. A lot of connections, so should be pretty easy to find. I'll just say that, in general, when seeking a job in security, you need to figure out what other people aren't doing and do that. Because again, there's hundreds of applicants to a single job on LinkedIn. If you're able to one-click apply to something, the easier it is to apply for something, the more people are going to do it. And so the harder something is to apply for, the less people are going to do it. So consider that when you're looking at the percentage of jobs that you might be likely to get. Track down hiring managers on LinkedIn, track down people in your target position on LinkedIn, ask them about how they got into the field, if they have any advice. Try and reverse engineer your career that way. Find somebody in your target position and ask them their best advice to try and get into that position. Don't just go out there and apply to hundreds of jobs at a time, because yes, it's easy to do from a volume standpoint, but it may not necessarily be the most effective way.
Yeah, once again, Pete, you nailed it, man. I can say I talk to a lot of people that are really active applicants, and I tell them, hey, we're going to partner together. We're going to do a lot together. Much of it's, really going to come from what you asked me to help you with, but we have a 1% rule. We're shooting for a 1% success rate. We're going to try 100 things together, and I don't think we're going to be upset if 99 of those don't work if we actually get a job together. But what I tell people, and really what I live by with my own job, is don't go to sleep until you feel like you've deliberately and intentionally done something proactive and productive to increase your chances. Maybe it's adding more content to your LinkedIn page, revamping that resume and saving it in different files, like Pete said. It's networking. Honestly, if you get on LinkedIn for an hour, I don't think that you'll go very long without seeing me or Pete commenting or dialoguing with people all over the world. And you never know what can come out of that. I see people literally just commenting congratulations on everybody's pages. And I've reached out to them to say, hey, I don't know if I'm going to have a job for you, but I'm absolutely willing to help you, just because that's awesome to see that kind of positive energy. There could be a hiring manager out there that does that. So I invite you to reach out to me, Pete, anybody at my company, HuntSource. We can be found at huntsource.io, and my email is just jhudson@huntsource.io. If you reach out to me, you're going to get my time, and I'm sure Pete would say the same thing. So yep. I think collectively, we just want to see the cybersecurity community get stronger to where we're not talking about the gaps, we're talking about the strength.
Yeah, thank you. Great parting words. Really appreciate you guys taking the time today. Thank you for attending and watching the live stream. A lot of great information coming out. So next week, if you are interested, we have a surprise live stream. This is going to be the last, but I'll be speaking with Brian Hoagley, talking specifically about how to be successful for individuals that are basically a one-person cyber shop. So I know there's a couple of people in the audience who are in that situation. He's going to talk to us about how to effectively communicate to senior level, how to get funding to do projects, and what skills you need to focus on first to really be successful in that role. So be sure to check that out. So special thanks to Pete and Joe, and thank you everybody. And until next time.
Gary.
Yep.
Thanks,
guys.
All right.